time to revisit the Schumann Quintet. I'm going to start with the first movement. Again, I'm just, of course I'm stone cold, but aside from that, what I'm looking for is a sense of maximum comfort for each one of these chords. I want to feel that I'm not stretching for them or having to define them, but having a sense of ease about how I place my hand each time. And I forgot that I chose to play a double thumb here. So even though I had written it down, so I was straining here, and I don't want it. Make sure I put my third on my E flat. All I did there was adjust, I happened to not go to 1-3 here, and 1-3 is so good for opening up gradually to the octave. So, and I continue to go to 1-4, which makes me realize just telling myself to remember it is not good enough. I need to write it down. Using sequential fingers, 5, 4, 3, 2 works well. It's slightly uncomfortable, however. So I think instead I will go 5, 4, 4 and use my foot to help out. I really should follow the fingering I suggested to myself last time. It's written down. 1, because it's there for a reason. It's actually quite comfortable and quite dependable. This one. Remember, later on, that'll be an A natural, but now it's an A flat. So, I think many repeated mistakes are simply not being aware of where precisely you have to go to, how you group things together. So, getting this far, making that transition, is important. From the left-hand perspective, the approach to the downbeat is separated out by this chord marker, B-flat pedal point, E going to F. So I have single notes, then the chords. And meanwhile, the right hand makes its big gesture. So, I would suggest that the biggest schism between success and lack of success in practicing is not the difference between very hard and very easy, but the difference between things that are minutely different from one another. Something that almost works, for example, is much more difficult to separate from something that really truly works with a great sense of comfort. So a lot of time is spent, I think, needs to be spent, or at least for me, needs to be spent, making those discriminations. So this is an innocuous little thing. I can always fake my way through it and not feel good about that and not sound that good. But if I have something like this that is so tailor-made for my body, the movement into the third finger black note, for example, very, very easy, very comfortable. And then separating it out from there, piece of cake. As you can see, I can do it now. If I had to play, that's way, way faster than I would need to or want to. But the sense of comfort and simplicity is so different from what it was a few moments ago. And much of that is just mental. It's how I rearranged what I concerned myself with. So, of course, if you recognize that something is the same, an octave lower, but in all other ways, it's the same. The angle of the hand to the arm will change ever so subtly. If I really want the maximum comfort, I can always move my torso. All right. So I need enough leftover finger here. Either I'm going to go to 2 and then move my hand, or I'll find a finger that enables me to get to 2. So. I think 2 and then 2 again. One empowering sign that Schumann provides is that he breaks the slur here by way of providing inflection on the third downbeat. It's also when 2 of my partners, the second violin and the cello, come in. So this is alone. Here's the reinforcement. So I don't need a legato fingering. I need a sense of easy gesture and inflection. The inflection, pardon me. Same thing. Violin solo. Bass kick. From a previous session. 5-2 on the tritone. Love it. Yes. I wrote a 4th. I didn't do it. I'm going to assume I knew what I was talking about at the time, and I do. I did. How nice. Third finger in the right hand. 1, 2, 3. I need to choose something. And 3 is the longest right there. Very easy for my arm to get my hand there. This 4th finger is not that intuitive. So I have to remind myself of it. Make sure I don't fall into any traps or misidentify a chord. Ouch. Just a reminder. Move my hand to 5th fing, 5-3 to get ready for the next chord. pattern in the left hand, I would normally go to the fifth finger. But now that I locate a hand, I have to be reminded, I have to remind myself I need third so I can complete the job down there. Only 4 notes. I could do it 5 to 4. It's not worth it. Although I can reach it just fine. Maybe it is worth it. The alternative is to move my whole hand up and find a more comfortable fingering. But I'll just do it as it falls for now. So, the 2 white notes together, I'll use on my thumb. It's really convenient. I could go 5, 4, 3, 2, but 4, 3, 2, 1 to the sforzando on the downbeat. It's very nice. So. Yeah. Which chords group together. If you start feeling you have to approach the keyboard once for every chord, it gets very complicated. And in general, because of the way chords are usually written, there's not a need to move your whole hand every time. For example, this goes to this goes to this. To C minor again. Even harmonically there's that sense. Move to here, move to there, stay there, and then isolate those. So, get to there, then here, then here, then here. These are all white notes, so I lose my into the keyedness here. Here I am a little bit more committed into the key. Here I need to be out a little more, and that's what was missing, the choreography that made this simple, this relationship simple. So if I go in and in, and in and in, and just happens to work a lot. In and in, and in, and in, and in. Nice swaying gesture. Okay, here's the A natural. Because the sensation is a little different, I want my body to think that A natural is a lot different from A flat in a bunch of different ways. It can't just be a mental thing. So I turn my hand a little more. For A flat, I'm drawn into the keyboard. For A natural, I'm drawn this away. If I want my 3 and 1 to be more or less even on the keyboard, by being in this angle, then my hand feels more at ease. It's, again, in a more neutral position. More neutral on a black note here, more neutral out here. If I leave my 3rd finger up here, then I put my hand in an awkward position and I'm less likely to feel good about finding the A natural. So this makes a huge difference. It reduces the sense of tension, or eliminates it. From a discussion with some of my partners, yesterday, the fact that this exposition is so short indicates that we're going to be taking this first ending, so we're going to do that. It's also when a composer writes a significantly different solution in first and second ending. It's nice to be able to share that. Very nice beat, natural. That little chromaticism provides a nice sinewy quality. So that's something I want to be aware of, because physically I need to be able to provide that, both with the musical awareness and physical awareness. I do have to choose what finger to play my first note of my right hand on this descending arpeggio, B flat 7. The third finger is the natural one to use. So, a small reminder that that's what I'm going to do. So the single note, so no. So again, letting go is important, and so on. Okay, now we're going to pretend we just did that. Play that whole exposition again, and I'll go to the second ending. This time I have to commit to getting my left hand down an octave. Here we go. Sorry. I have to remind myself to let go of the right hand, because Schumann shows a half note, a line extending in the left hand, and the right hand, meanwhile, is being more supportive. So it's important that I get that choreography so as to clear the texture and point everyone's ear toward the left hand line. So. What finger to cross over on. Very often it's useful not to put the thumb in, because the thumb requires you to move further in, so often there's a bit of interference. If I'm coming around like that, then the second is a perfectly reasonable one, except I want second here, I decided. So in this case there's plenty of room, so I am going to use the thumb. I'm going to write it. It's a very small thing. I could use any one of my 5 fingers and still work. Whoops. I could, but that would be silly. Even 1 and 2 together would work. But having 1 alone reminds me that my second is free. It gets me a little readier for the next line. If reading is hard, and in this case there's a bunch of accidentals, in particular a bunch of flats that flatten white notes, and that's always, that kind of accidental is always more difficult to read, especially if you're in a weird key like A flat minor. So I just want to make sure to reinforce the physicality of it and the simplicity of it. Staring at these notes and they look complicated every single time and nothing clicks into place, physically or otherwise, then I'm always going to be in the same kind of trouble. kinesthetics of it, the physical memory, is more significant than just about anything else because the gestures are reasonable. The choreography is simple. The notation is not. So I favor whatever is more useful to me. Of having to do a slightly more complex choreography or less comfortable choreography than would be gained by just going to the path of least resistance, the most comfortable moments. So that's at least for now where I need to be mentally aware. Come on out and separate those two chords from one another. Excuse me, from the other ones. And there. I had a fingering written for the first two notes of the left hand. It didn't completely tell me what to do next, and it also didn't tell me what to do in the right hand, which I found was being a bit arbitrary. So, 4-2, 4-2. I found that these two 4-2-1 groups, again, it doesn't have to be a harmony. It's just a shape for the hand. Two sonorities. And this is 3 as I expected. Okay, the beginning of all these acres of eighth notes. I have to remind myself that in this non-legato section not to replay the tied note. I still have a tendency to want to do this with my left-hand thumb. So I'm not going. Just crossing it out is an indication you don't reiterate it, for me. Here. I may discover it later. I like it, I'll mark it. I'll see if it sticks. Yeah, I'm able to stay in the black notes longer that way. Because my thumb can continue inward because it's short, so the other 3 fingers play black notes, and my arm is able to move me into the thumb. And then I'm out here for this nice comfortable chord again. So 5-4 rather. The fingers in order, 5-3, 1-2-3 would give me this slightly extended D minor. 3-2-1. I'm not crazy about this sensation, so I could adjust to 4-2-1, which feels good or better. Then I have to decide: do I go from second finger on E flat and make the big gesture to the 4th finger? Or do I make the adjustment with the E flat? And then I feel, if I do that, last possibility would be to go to third on the E flat and then 5, 3, 2, 1 to match the other fingerings. Going back to 2 on E flat to C. Well, I'm of 2 or 3 minds, which is standard. I like a lot of them for different reasons. The one that's currently, a little bit to my surprise, the simplest is going to 2. In other words, sticking with the natural hand position for the first group and then just moving my hand to 4th, 2, 1 for the second group. So I'm going to put that in. For now. Similar issue. These are white notes. These are white notes. So there's no reason this same solution couldn't work here. So I'm going to have, oops, I have 2 on my B flat, and then 4, 2 subsequent notes. And that will make it an identical sensation to that, or almost identical. Yep. Again, 5, 4, 2, 1. That hand turning over gets me up here. I don't know why I didn't mark that when I came through here before, but you never know what you'll discover from day to day. Okay. This chain, I have to make decisions about. My first logical, shall we say, observation is I probably should get to 5th finger on the top note of each of these descending groups to put my hand at ease. Now, does that work? It certainly works from the point of view of making these 3-note groups, I won't call them chords, 3-note groups comfortable. That doesn't mean that getting to them is necessarily comfortable. That's what I've got to find out. So if I went to 2 each time, and then just moved my hand, that's at least one scheme that should work. If I adjust early, that's another possibility. If I need to adjust, such as that, in other words, rather than having it all under the hand. Well, here's a thought. When I go on, I turn to the thumb to get me up here. Do I want to use that in this instance? I rather suspect not. What I'm looking is for ideal. Right now I don't have ideal, and it's possible that there won't be an ideal. In other words, that sweet spot where everything just feels as elegant, as comfortable, as economical, as efficient as possible. So what I might end up having to be satisfied with is something that works, that I have to remind myself about how it works. Just follow my fingering instructions, for example. Well, what seems to work best right now is to commit to the new hand position 1 note early. So I'm going to the 3rd finger, I have my 3-note descent, basically. So that's that's where I'm going to draw my lines. In other words, the descent, then the 4 subsequent notes, and the 4 subsequent notes. So not there. Now, okay? And just as a reminder, I'll put third finger for the first one of those. 3, 3, very nice. Okay, so that feels like a good decision. Finger substitute to get my left hand early. Yeah. Nice. Oops. That doesn't work yet. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. Okay. The issue again is, when do I change my group? And in this case, this was very much like what I had before. Well, it is exactly what I had before. But going down further, it felt better to adjust one note early. So instead of finishing off the group on thumb here, I moved to third. That's no good. Well, it's weird. I'm going to get to that later. I want to make sure. Same issue as before. Let me go back. It's funny because when I was combining these together, I was looking for a new fingering. But the grouping I had before related this lower chord to this higher chord. And just by reversing what belongs with what and where it starts, it changed what fingering I desired. So I have to remind myself of, I'm done. Musically speaking, this is a conclusion, reinforced by the strings. Aha! Arrive. Now the chain. Okay, so that's good. I like to, when you're playing parallel passages, I like to try both hands, because it's quite possible that I could find an ideal solution for each hand individually, but then the coordination is much more difficult. So it's good to know if there are any coordination issues up front. Then I can still practice it hands apart once I've made that decision what works well together. So, for example, I have to make a decision here. What is my left hand going to do? That was odd, but it worked. makes me feel even more a certain parallelism. Good. Okay, all these. White note, non-chord chords. Looks like E minor, and because of its strange context of being actually several different chords, it's just a hand position. My hand doesn't know the difference between a chord. My hand doesn't hear. That feels good. Now, similarly, if I am shifting to 3 here, shifting to 2 in that left hand might work very well, because then it gives me. On the other hand, it gives me 2 2s in fairly quick succession, 2 on F and then 2 on E. That's what's happening in my right hand as well, and that's where the big gesture occurs. Turning my hand over seems like a bit of a waste here. So for now, we're going to stick with 3 in the right hand and 2 in the left hand as I start my little ascent. Flat. Of course, all the top notes, 5th finger. I could go to 3. For many people, it would be more appropriate. But I'm going to go to 4 instead, because it makes my hand, the whole gesture, smaller, and my hand gets to be more passive. The 3rd requires me to move more. Again, because I need space, so I'd have to come out further. And the 4th, I don't need to. So that one time I go 5 3, 5 3, 5 4, 5 3. Fine. Okay, now here's where the hand turned fingering 5 4 1, 5 4 2 1. Excuse me. Works well. Whoops. So 5 4 2 1. 4 2 1 5 3 1 2. I just have to remind myself to come out. That works really nicely. So my arm starts to get a sort of rhythm. Anticipating. If I'm going to go 5 4 2, 5 4 2 is not the most comfortable thing for essentially a D flat major chord. But the reason I'm going to 5th finger is because of this big leap. So I have to remind myself I do not need to set my hand up for the whole chord. I just need the A flat. In fact, Schumann has bothered to isolate the beaming of that anyway. In that fashion. So there's no reason for me to try to make these all go together. So in my head, I've changed that to make sure that my concern for the A flat doesn't extend to any concern for the rest of the chord. So that's easy. Then this. So same issue here, presumably. Now, not all of these subsequent chords are as comfortable. A flat, fifth finger, presumably, going to F natural and B natural. So the choreography takes care of the comfort. I move to get back out to the white notes. So, that's good. So the sensations of each of those four are ever so slightly different from one another. In the black note area, the white. I'm tilted. One of these B-flatty kind of situations where the black note defines where the hand will be tilted for comfort. Now, blacks. So from the tilt to the black, outer black note position. All black notes. The white note position. Black outer notes to a rather exotic tilt because it's a larger interval. It's tilted in favor of the fifth finger, which has the black note here. So, I just need to become well acquainted with those various sensations. That's one of my favorites because it goes to a truly comfortable, made for the hand position here. It's the only one that really goes to something that's nice and friendly at the end. Okay. Tilt. Tilt is actually kind of nice. So, find a good groove for it. And then a rather unfriendly one, let's say. I could go 5, 3, 1, 2. But I'm rather liking the turning around fingering. And it works for me here. Okay, that's starting to do stuff. So, I have made at least a temporary decision about my left hand fingering. It's going to be 1 and 2, not 2 and 3. And the primary reason is it keeps my left hand very much to the left of my right hand. As my right hand leaves that area, I don't want to have a lot of overlap. So by going to thumb, they maintain their side-by-side relationship rather than interlocking. Whereas 2 and 3 would tend to make me want to get there earlier and to intrude in the space of the right hand. It's interesting that you add one little ingredient. For example, the left hand here is not hard and the notes are not fast, but just that little bit of distraction is enough to make what was simple a moment ago in the right hand be just a little bit less so. I've got to learn to incorporate those into a composite coordinated gesture and a composite coordinated thought, which is as simple as it was before. So when I can make this really passive and dependable, then it becomes unified. So now, having thought that at the bottom, that makes that whole unit now really satisfying. So I need a placement in here. It's going to be 1, 3, because I need my second finger available for 2, 4. So it's slightly different. Okay. So I noticed that at the end of every group, for now, I need a sizable amount of time to make a decision. To my advantage, right now, before our first rehearsal, my partners are not playing at that precise moment in time. They come in, their punctuation marks, their eighth, half note, da-da, happen in the middle of my repeated flurry. So that's really a nice thing to have noticed. It's a temporary gift, I guess. So, I know that's the decision. Not very good noticing I'm looking a lot, you know, I'm trying to be prepared for the beginning of each group. F, and let's see. I may as well remind myself of the bass note, because that's the biggest leap in the left hand. G twice, and then C twice. That's useful to know. So that takes care of one little bit of concern. Instead of having to worry about where both hands are going, I can tell myself very comfortably and well in advance, left hand you're going to G. Not only that, but I have a quarter note with a quarter note rest. So Schumann is giving me the time to find it. Same thing on the way up. Whoops. He's giving me a quarter note with a quarter note rest. So G. And I forgot to tell myself 1, 3. 1, 2, 1, 3. Another thing to tell myself is when I go up, I have the same chord. I don't know if I ever bothered to tell myself that before, but that's just a very basic little thing that I can't just assume. I have to know. I have to be conscious of it. That way, I'm not going to worry about my hand placement on the way up. I will find the same chord that I had a moment ago. So, call this what you will. Spelled A flat, F, C sharp. You can call it a D flat chord. It's the feeling. Black, white, black. Yeah, that makes a big difference for finding that chord. Now, it's not perfect, but I recognized that my decision making was much quicker because I had a pattern that I was working with. F, and then 1, 3 on 2 white notes. F, that's right, yes. Big chord. Let me do the second one. Stick with 1 and 2 on top most of the time. 1 and 3 once. I don't have to. And maybe I'll change my mind, but 1 and 3 for now. 1, 3 for now. Okay, it's a little frantic. I should slow it down because at least now I know what I'm trusting. Yes. I knew that was coming. Okay. One more time. 1, 2. Whoops. 1, 2 on the right notes. And F. F. Messy, but good. So I'll slow it down. Good. Okay, I got a little nervous there. Let's try from here. Okay, I'm going to carry it. One, two, 1. I had to be aware of what my tempo was. I need to know what the actual demand is going to be on me. Although we haven't yet met, so haven't chosen a tempo, but I want to be prepared for anything. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Reminding myself that I've decided to take the low octave in the left hand alone. 2, 2. this isolated F in the right hand, it makes me more comfortable because it prepares me for the next right hand chord. Now I suddenly realize that this is designed to be a right hand chord. So I need fifth finger here and the recognition that I'm going to play that in the right hand. So, all right. No pun intended. Really small fingering issue. All these white notes. I have to try to not be arbitrary with them. I could go 4, 2, 3, 1, 2. But I want thumb here, I think. Experimenting. Based on the closeness of my right hand, I'm going to go 1, 3 on CE and 1, 2 on DF. And then choose 1 for C alone. So I have very smart of Schumann to indicate this. My friend? It sounded me. B double flat. Do not play the tie note. Same issue as before. Okay, I've got to find a decent finger. It's a rather ungainly arrangement of keys here. Going to make my adjustment as I did before on the first ascending note. Make it third finger and then 4, 2. 4, 2. Works. Good. Some of these turn fingerings 5, 4, 2 from previous going through. Try to make that work. I'm noticing that having given this several days off, that probably won't be a good idea. This is one of those passages where I'm working out good solutions, but I'm losing some of the connection with them when time passes by. So I need to develop a connection with it till I reach the point where in my long-term memory it's stored away and I have a feeling of a complete physical affinity and conceptual affinity with it. That's not happened yet. Similar decisions, though, about these hand groups. Then a lot of times I'm choosing to commit to the new hand group, the third finger on the first ascending note, because it does set up beautifully the second hand group. So. finger in the likely spot. 5-4 again from my hand for this pseudo G7th chord. Because that makes the turn much easier for me. Third finger. Maybe that's all I need to write. And fourth is a reminder of the 4-2 pseudo D minor chord. Okay, let me go back a bit. This is a very long passage. It still goes on for another system. 1 page, 2 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a portion lines of score with this non-stop 8th note pattern. Anyway. Tilted chord. It may be that I end up wanting to do 4-2-1 instead of 5-3-1. Let's find out. Getting to the top is harder though. Maybe. I think it might work actually. Let's see how I get into it. Yeah, so if it starts here without a big lead, I still may want to experience it. Okay, I'm going to put that down, see if I can live with it. 4. Here on the high A flat, the highest note. 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. So because here I have a white note chord. And third finger in the middle, that's great. Here, if I go 4th finger on B flat, grab this chord, this tilted chord, even though I don't get up to the 5th as quickly. Actually, here I like 5th because it doesn't put me out in this particular angle. It's just that much quicker and more passive to get to the top note, so I'll print that one. Fourth finger, 5-4. On this little minor third, 2 black notes with an elongated tritone here. So I put it in because it's an exception fingering. 5-3, 5-3, 5-4, 5-3, 5-4. Oops. 5-4. 2 black notes close together. schism at the end. Isn't that a surprising E flat major? You notice I haven't perfected what went behind here. I'm going to go back to it, but I'm continuing to the end partly for sheer entertainment value. In other words, you can't get stuck in a mode where you're sort of grappling with things all the time. You need your little successes and discoveries. In this case, I want to know how it all turns out. I want to know how this musical narrative ends up. So. It's a C sharp twice, and it's the second finger twice. Good. Take care of the left hand, because again, although it seems innocuous enough, if it distracts me, there'll be a price to pay in the right hand figuration. So. Okay, we have a E flat pedal here, 5 to 1, but here we have an interesting diminished chord. Diminished chord, okay, nothing. Diminished chord, down a whole step, another diminished chord, down a half step, so all white notes also, down a whole step, so whole step, half step to the white note ones, and then a series of seconds, so diminished, 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 about it when I'm playing my right hand. Interestingly, the left hand is playing white notes. That's what I want to remind myself of in my right hand as well. The left hand was playing white notes, so is my right. So. Playing my left hand just by feel there, which was a useful test. This is, to me, counterintuitive, so I have to give myself some reasonableness to it. Well, one thing, the feel of it is really important. I've got 3 white notes, looks like G major. It isn't written as G major, but it feels like G major and it looks like G major on the piano. And then the next chord is going to be F major E. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. So in other words, this parallelism becomes, really simplifies the process a lot. And then no longer triad-like things. Big difference. G major E. Again, your body doesn't know the difference. It knows the spacing. So if your mind chooses to call it G major, even though harmonically speaking, it's not going to sound that way. It becomes a useful way of learning. All right, we need a little bit of review here because at the very least I want to leave this with a sense that some of this is storing. We're starting to store. Feel. It's all black notes and a big gesture, but made easier by the fact that I can splay out my hand as I fling it upward. That gives me much greater accuracy because I can play with my hands like snowshoes. Twice 5/4 and then 5/4 in a different context, and then 3 probably. 4, 4, 3, yeah. 3, by the left hand. I will probably go to 2/4, which I wouldn't normally do, but it does set up the upper part of the D flat minor chord. Yep, it's a turnover fingering. I've got to remind myself of that. In other words, with the thumb, the ascending note. Breath. Oops. That's the kind of passage that makes you humble. You know, there's just enough going on. There's enough quick little changes, adjustments in fingering and gesture, in thought. So I know I'll need to come back to this to start to reach the point of really assimilating it fully. But at the very least, I think I've developed a good fingering strategy, which is useful to me, and a reasonable sense of where it's headed. Okay, so we're back. I think I'm going to take a brief break. No, I'm not. We're halfway home. Need to be able to see. The thumb works out again. Not in melodic intent or thematic intent, just in setting. bit different, huh? I also wrote a fingering that helps remind me of the spacing. The second, the fifth filled in, the major second at the bottom. So. To do, so I'm going to replace it with that two. Remember that fourth finger. Fourth. Be careful of what's tied. Okay, outer notes move. Written down to get me this chord. I should have remembered that, but I didn't, so I'm going to write it down. It's when you say, I should have done this, and you don't. Nothing beats a pencil mark to indicate what you want to do. I've got my third finger mark, which is an indication of what's to come. Otherwise, I wouldn't think to use it. Sense because I don't have that much time to get to this chord. So I'm going to go 2, 3, 4. And the change finger, I'm still probably going to do this 2, 1, 3 fingering at the top. It signals to me it's the end. It's different. Tritones, where the thumb has to play the white note, the black note, and the long finger the white note. They're always a little ungainly for the hand. So I often experiment with whether or not the optimal fingering, 2 and 5, might work nonetheless. And in fact, it does. So even though I'm moving more, I'm moving to comfort, to something trustworthy. Same thing applies on the second chord here. Same chord, same kind of chord. So I'm going to go to 5-2 and then 4-2. And then 5-2 again. It just grabs me the chord more easily. And in spite of the fact that I'm moving a greater distance, I'm moving towards something where my body assures me I'm going to be comfortable on those keys. So. Just a reminder, I'm going to do that numerous times. And I'm just going to pepper the score with my fingering. Oh, I love it. Fingering mark, but I'm going to do a turn fingering in both hands. 3-1 to 3 in the left hand, and 2-1 to 2 in the right hand. So. Now again, I could go to 1-2-4 in the left hand. But again, the hand is tilted. So what I might do, again for my hand, is I might go 2-4-5 and feel the maximum sense of, let's call it flingability, that when I fling my hand through the air, I'm going to find that first inversion E-flat chord in the left hand most easily, for my body, disclaimer, with 2-4-5. So if I want it to be quick and responsive and there and strong, that's what I'm going to do.